Hi, I'm Gareth Rose from iPitch.com.au. In this interview I sat down with Matt Barrie. Matt is the BRW Entrepreneur of the Year and CEO of Freelancer. Freelancer.com is the world's largest outsourcing marketplace. In this interview I chatted with Matt about his background prior to acquiring and building up the business Freelancer, and now how he continues to market and grow the business. Here's the interview. Well, Matt, thanks for sitting down with me.
Thanks for coming to talk to you.
Yeah, no worries. So, look, I want to just initially kick off a bit about your background before Freelancer.
Yep.
Look, you're BRW Entrepreneur of the Year. Freelancer's one of the hottest businesses around right now. So, obviously, success doesn't happen overnight. I had a quick look at your LinkedIn bio prior to this interview. It seemed like you went to uni in the early 90s,
Yep.
maybe worked for a couple of years or so, and then basically you've been starting up and running tech businesses for the last 12 or 13 years.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit more about your background prior to Freelancer?
Sure. Well, I started off, I did 2 undergraduate degrees at the University of Sydney in 1991. I started Bachelor of Engineering. I got first class honours in that, and then did computer science. So I did a dual degree with honours in both. That lasted about 6 years. Then went straight to Stanford, where I did my Masters in Engineering, and that was in the middle of dot-com boom. So this was 1997, 1998. So it was a pretty special time for that place.
Yeah.
Google started when I was there. Chelsea Clinton was on campus. Tiger Woods was on campus. The guy in my class started PayPal. There were things happening all over the place. Yahoo had just started, I think, the year before, and so on. So it was pretty exciting times. And certainly opened my mind up a lot to actually the fact that you can be an entrepreneur, go out there, start companies, and so forth. The technology industry and so on. It was a very, very different experience from what you have back in Australian universities, where there was basically no concept at all really at the time of innovation or going out there and starting businesses and so on. Pretty much you're being trained to be a engineer working at a big company. So that was all very exciting. And then after I completed my Masters, I actually, it's very interesting actually, my lab partner was Munjal Shah, and he just sold he started 2 big companies. He started a company called Underlay.com, which fed off aggregated auctioning on top of eBay and so forth. And he was my lab partner at the time, and so he asked me if I wanted to go and start a company with him, which was kind of interesting. And I had a choice between joining that company and joining up what was a sure thing, which was Securify, which was run by all these famous computer security guys in the Valley, and so on. So I joined Securify, and next thing I know, Munjal's got off and raised $60 million, and he's gone off done Underlay, so that became a big business. But he actually just went and started a second company called Like.com. He just sold that, I think, to Google, made a fair bit of money out of it. So it's all kind of very interesting what was going on at the time. So I joined Securify, which was basically a company that was involved in computer security. So did a range of things. Originally, the strategy was a bit confused. We weren't quite sure if they're a products company or a services company and so forth. But after 9 months, no revenue, no products, and no idea, we sold to Kroll, which is one of the world's biggest intelligence investigations company in the world. So we became sort of the computer forensics arm of this giant multinational organisation that kind of investigates the World Trade Center bombings and Gaddafi's assets and Hussein's assets and things like that. So that was all very interesting times. Yeah. So we were paid to go in and review people's companies' networks, break into banks and do all sorts of things. So it was a bit like sneakers to an extent. So it's all fun. After doing that for a couple of years, I then came back to Australia. So this is just before the dot-com bubble burst. Kroll was looking at sort of expanding sort of overseas, and I came back to Australia to spearhead the growth into Asia Pacific. But then, of course, the bubble burst, and I decided I didn't want to go to California when all the plans were shelved. And so I decided, thought I'd try and see what sort of venture capital industry was like in Australia. So I actually joined a company called Innovation Capital, which was actually directly below us, come 4 down. That's a coincidence. But being a venture capitalist is a very different type of job than being a technology entrepreneur. So you basically read 200 business plans a day and you fund maybe 2 a year. So it can be very disappointing to entrepreneurs that come to see you every day pitching sort of ideas. The fact that not many deals actually occur. The other thing is you've got to have operational experience in your track record. I mean, to be a good venture capitalist, you've got to have success in building companies and exiting them and so forth.
And then you didn't quite have that. You were
no, I was fresh. I was a fresh grad out of uni, pretty
Yeah.
much. A couple of years experience. So I then decided to start a company. So I started a company with my former thesis supervisor from the University of Sydney in audio video transcoding. But it was sort of his baby. I helped get the funding together and so forth, and I wanted to do my own thing. So I left pretty quickly and started a company called Sensory Networks. And this was a company that built the most complicated product on earth, which is a gigabit high-performance pattern-matching chip. This is a chip that you put inside network equipment to scan for patterns at very, very high speed. So things like virus signatures, content signatures, spam, you name it. And we figured out the hard way that to sell a chip, you've got to put it on a card. To sell the card, you've got to have device drivers to integrate in someone else's equipment. You've got to have all these software layers. We ended up selling the product to big companies like McAfee and LG and so on. But then you get informed that McAfee wants to make the product themselves. So suddenly you're in the test equipment business, because you'll make the test equipment for their manufacturing facilities to go test the cards when they make them themselves, etc., etc., etc. And being a hardware business, it's a very, very capital intensive endeavor. Basically, you've got annual product cycles, so the sales cycle can be up to 2 years long before you actually get a sale, and then you start building a product. So then you've build a product which may take a year, maybe more, and then when the product's ready, by definition, it's a brand new product, so it's not like doing a software upgrade in the field. You've actually got to fire up distribution, marketing, the channel, sales, etc. And there's a very, very long ramp up after that, and to actually see any revenue. So if you're actually in the hardware business, you basically need to get Cisco as a customer, and you need to sell your business to Cisco, and Cisco will make money out of it, but you won't make any money as a hardware business.
So it's no good business.
Very, very, very tough, capital-intensive business where you've got potentially one seat of software for one engineer costs $100,000 a year. So forth. But raised a lot of money for that, and from a bunch of venture capitalists locally. It was a bit of I had a lot of cooks in the kitchen, I guess is one way of describing it. I had something like 9 venture capitalists who were half the time at each other's throats, and if not my throat, and so on, and so forth. But it was a very tough business. So the last thing I did was actually transform into a software business and make plans to transform into a software business. And the company's actually still going today. But I left that business in 2006, and I did actually profitable now, which is good. Software is a lot easier to do this sort of thing. But after that, I went off and I was trying to figure out the next thing to do. So I took a year off, went skiing, and then decided I was going to get into the game again. And I was working on a few side projects and various bits and pieces. And the whole thing that came around with the gestation of a freelancer was one day I was trying to get some data entry done for a directory website, just some side project, helping someone out. And I thought it was very boring stuff. I had to just type in thousands of entries into a spreadsheet, basically, with a bunch of stores around the world and their website addresses and a picture and things like that. And I was trying to get a little brother of actually my head of strategy to do the work. A friend of mine who's now head of strategy. And it was very, very frustrating, because he had exams on, and is at school still, and maybe a few free hours here but not there, and so forth. But so in frustration after trying to pay someone to go and do this work, and I expected to pay about $2 an entry, so it's maybe $2,000 for 1,000 entries. I went online and stumbled across coincidentally getafreelancer.com, as it was called at the time, and I posted a job. And I posted the job, and then it took a few seconds. I walked away, and I came back 3 hours later. I had something like 74 unread emails in my inbox. I thought, what on earth is going on here? So I checked my inbox, and I had all these people, like 70 people wanting to do the job, right? And here I was in frustration, running around trying to get, just find one person to do the job, and then I couldn't even get them to do it. And they were saying I'll do it for $500, $400, $300, $200, $100. I thought this can't be for real. So I ended up hiring a team of people in Vietnam who did the job perfectly in 3 days, and I only have to pay them $100 after the job was done. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is absolutely game changing. I mean, what's going on here, right? So I digged a bit deeper into the industry and saw what was going on. And I mean, effectively what's happening is, I've said this before, I mean, there's 6.8 billion people in the world, there's 2 billion people on the internet. The other 5 billion are connecting now at double-digit, triple-digit rates, and they're poor, they're hungry, they're driven, self-skilling, self-motivated, and they want a job, right? They're on $10 a day or less. So this is basically disruption. Disruption in one of the biggest markets in the world, which is basically the human labour market. So I looked at that, and I thought I could get into this space. So I actually sat down and I wrote the code for my own marketplace. At the time it was called bidditout.com. In about 2 weeks, and I was using Freelancer actually to get it built. So I was, there's a bit of a feedback loop there, but I was hiring directors. I was on Get a Freelancer to do various things, and so on. I was writing the code and so forth, and put together a business plan, and pretty much discovered that there's a number of entrenched competitors that I'd known about for a while in the space that had raised between $60 and $100 million, and had between 6 years or so or more a head start, 5 to 7 I think years head start, and actually in one case one company had a 10-year head start, and I thought to myself, well geez, if I had $100 million in 10 years I would have restarted the space program. I'm not quite sure these guys are doing, but they were a fair way down the track, and so I figured out pretty quickly that I wouldn't be able to start from scratch because at the time I had any mass. I mean, this is a marketplace, you need to have economies of scale. So the time you actually get economies of scale, the competitors will be that much further along in the plans. So I looked at whether I could buy into the space. So I inquired with a number of sites to see if they would sell, and I got back a range of different answers. And incidentally, the site I used first, Get a Freelancer, I noticed it didn't have any venture backing. It was run out of what I thought was a Swedish hostel, but it was actually running out of a fish farm in Vanuatu by a Swedish guy. And I asked if he wanted to sell the business, and he said, actually, I'm in due diligence with a number of parties. So I said, well, send me the information. And he sent it across, and I asked him how much money he wanted for the business. And I thought to myself, this is a fantastic opportunity. So I said to him, I basically put an option agreement in place immediately to buy it. It turns out there was about 6 companies that were in due diligence at the time, including the competitors who I compete with today. And I went about to get the money. And so I got the money together. I got that off another internet entrepreneur in Australia who built up a company called PC Tools, and he built it up from scratch to about $100 million in revenue and sold it to Symantec for a very large amount of money. Yeah, okay. But I knew him from my sensory days, and since that time, at the time the company was called GetAFreelancer.com. That's about the 5,000th biggest website in the world. There are half a million users on the site. And since that time, I then went and rebranded, so I bought all the freelancer domains. That cost a fair bit of money. But I bought the freelancer.com domain name, and that was actually a pivotal moment in the branding of the business, because it's a bit like the Facebook, right? And I dropped the it sounds a bit cleaner, right? We suddenly went from being a sort of tier 2 bit player to being a premium brand. So much so that some of our competitors now have problems promoting themselves, because they, when people mention online outsourcing to someone, they go, involves hiring freelancers and so forth. Have you heard about it? And some will go and think, oh, what was it? It's freelancer. So they type in freelancer, and where it hits 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the front page of Google, right? Nice. Well, competitors don't have that in their name. They've got, internet names, like Google and Zynga and stuff like that. But and so on. So that was a big moment. I then fixed up a number of problems with the business model, and it started spitting out cash pretty quickly. And then I used that cash flow to acquire about 12 different domains/websites. So I bought a regional marketplace in the UK, Australia, Hong Kong, Germany. I bought Live Exchange, which is a New York-based competitor, and so forth. I acquired Webmaster Talk, which is it's an online forum. It's the 3rd biggest webmaster forums in the world, and so on. I put these all together, these businesses, and rebranded the site, put some resources behind it. I now have 85 people working for me, and started doing PR and marketing and this and the other, and fixed a bunch of things up in terms of usability, and everything's just taken off. So we've gone from about 5,000 biggest website in the world to where we hit about 250, 245 or so about 2 weeks ago. We've gone to 2.5 million users from 500,000. We hit a few weeks ago 1 million jobs have been outsourced to the site. That represents almost about $90 million US worth of work through our PayPal account that's gone through. And the interesting thing about that is because you pay about as low as 1/10 of what you'd normally pay, we've saved Western businesses somewhere around, we think $500 million to $1 billion worth of costs, which is great in terms of productivity in the West. Yeah, sure. Right? And so on. So, it's really flying. And since that time, there's a bunch of things we've been doing. We've been launching a bunch of regional sites. We've launched a freelancer.com.au in Australia, co-NZ in New Zealand. We've done the UK. We're about to do Canada. we've done Hong Kong, Philippines, Singapore, we've done Germany, and this and the other. And we want to be eBay, so we want to be in every country in the world, in every currency of the world, in every language of the world, and we want to be the sort of eBay for jobs, right? I'm not quite sure why no one's done it yet, but we're out there, that's what we're doing. So I mean, effectively, what we do is what's kind of magical about this business is we empower entrepreneurs, right? And we empower entrepreneurs both in the West and in the developing world. In the West, what we do is we help small business owners get any job done they can possibly think of any time of day, right? So you might be a small business, you might be a gift store somewhere in Parramatta or the city, or maybe not city, but wherever. And traditionally you might have relied on foot traffic to basically get your business, right? Now you can build a website, you can get traffic to your website, you can get your products up on eBay, you can get new brochures designed, you can get new logo designed, etc. And you can do so just sitting in front of a computer, right? Instead of having to go out and chase a graphic designer or find a programmer or go and find someone who can help you source a product in China. Literally, it's just as simple as just jumping on a website, posting your requirements, which takes a few seconds. We have 2.5 million people ready to bid on your job, and you can get it done very, very, very cost effectively. I mean, we've got a guy on our site, for example, makes $1 million a year building $65 websites, right, and so on.
It's a lot of websites, yeah.
But
that's all the work comes.
Well, he's built himself up to have 80 people work for him now in 3
okay.
facilities. So as you do more work on the site as a freelancer, your reputation grows, and as your reputation increases, your place in the bid list increases. And the guys at the top list are making 7 digits a year, effectively, more or less. And so on. So there's a capacity to really lift your earnings. So in the West, what we do is we allow small businesses to just get things done. I mean, everyone's got crazy ideas at any time of day, right? What if I had an iPhone application that did this? What if I could find someone to help me put together a business plan? What if I could find someone to build a website I always wanted to build, etc. And we give that power to small business owners and individuals. In the developing world, we empower entrepreneurs as service providers. So, as I mentioned, the guy who's doing $1 million a year, right? This was a guy that started off from scratch, right? And because he was good at what he did, and he had quality control and so forth, and he had great customer service, and he had a good product, which is web design and so forth, he managed to actually build his business up to almost 100 people, right? So what we do all through the developing world is a whole new class of entrepreneur that's rising up and being basically a freelancer. And with most of the world's population on under $300 a month, right? The ability to go and earn your monthly wage in a few hours or days, I mean, it's absolutely magical. In Bangladesh, we're the 21st biggest website. So we're bigger than Microsoft.com, we're bigger than Bing, Apple, Amazon, LinkedIn, PayPal, right, in Bangladesh. So it's huge. Pakistan, we just overtook Amazon.com for traffic. So
okay, let me stop you there for a moment. Is that there's a lot of things that came up throughout it, and you've already answered a whole lot of other questions as well.
Yep.
In terms of actually this, I guess, private equity style roll-up that you did initially after you purchased Get a Freelancer, had you done that before, or where did you learn, I guess, that actual skill?
I've acquired a number of businesses before, it's Sensory, and even before that, when I was at Securify, I actually bought the assets of business. So, these are not huge acquisitions, but I've been through this before. Okay,
so did you have any challenges or problems, I guess, in doing that, or was it all pretty straightforward? Rolling.
The very first business, so the Get a Freelancer business, that took about 18 months, I think, from memory to close the deal. Okay. It was the middle of the financial crisis, so the markets were up, they were down. 1 minute, the vendor was feeling happy about the deal. Next minute, he was feeling upset about the deal. It was a very turbulent time. So. And the other thing was that it was a two-sided negotiation I had to do. I had to negotiate the option agreement at the same time I had to go and raise the financing. So usually what happens is a founder comes along and it's their idea, they've got their own business plan, they go out there and they're looking to raise money into a venture that they've created themselves. In my case, the original asset I acquired, and so
or you're in the process of acquiring.
Process of acquiring. Yeah. So it was a difficult negotiation when you had to go to investors saying, well, I want to go and buy this, and this is why, and so forth. It's a bit of a management buy-in situation, which is in the big end of town. I see it all. It's seen all the time, but in sort of the venture space, it's very rare this sort of thing occurs.
Okay, and what about after that, when you actually brought in this UK one, and I think I can't remember the other ones you said, but 5 or 6 other ones that I believe
they were pretty straightforward to acquire. The domain name was freelancer.com, was very difficult to acquire because the guy who had that obviously thought he was onto something which is the minted domain name premium. Generic keyword.
And he was, so yeah.
He was. And So it took it was extreme persistence in order to secure that name. Actually, I was quite surprised. We're at the time we're in the middle of a competition, so we're in the middle of a competition to design a logo for ourselves, right? And we put it out to the freelancers and said, just submit your designs and we'll give away $10,000. But it was for the logo for Get a Freelancer. So we got about 7,000 designs in for that before I actually discovered that the guy actually accepted my offer. Offer number 53 or whatever it was. So we had to go and interrupt the competition to go redo the competition from scratch with a completely different name. So we got 13,000 entries for that one, which is pretty interesting. But that was difficult because he had the domain name from it was left over from an old computer magazine called Freelancer, and that magazine was now defunct. But he'd been sitting on it, waiting for the day that he could make a lot of money from it. And he did make a substantial amount of money for it, but luckily I got it for less than what he originally wanted. So.
Okay, nice. So in terms of the business growth, I mean, obviously there's two things that you've mentioned. You're acquiring and merging in all these other businesses in the same space. Obviously, you bring in their customers, or 90% or hopefully close to 100% of all their customers already. Yeah. And the other thing is that this outsourcing space, you hit it at, say, just the right time, or it's exploding now. So I imagine those two things combined have really led to the quick growth of Freelancer. Is there anything else that we haven't discussed there that sort of you've done? You mentioned PR or something like that.
Word of mouth is great for this business because if you're a freelancer and suddenly you've earned a month's wage in a few hours, you're going to tell everyone in your home country about it. So in places like India and Pakistan, Bangladesh, Philippines, we're a household name as a result of that. Likewise, in the West, if you're a small business owner that's been frustrated trying to get a website built and you've got quotes for $10,000, $5,000, in one case, someone wrote a case study the other day, $40,000 for the corporate identity website, this, that, the other, and just sit there, going, well, I know I need a website. I know is this what it costs? Is this how hard it's going to be, right? And how expensive it's going to be? To suddenly then jump online and go, hang on, I just posted a project. There's about 200 people wanting to build me a website for $500. And they've sent me samples and it looks pretty good. I mean, it's just completely, to anyone who's even got the slightest hint of entrepreneurship or initiative in them, as a small business, it's tremendously empowering. And they obviously want to tell all their friends after that how great it is. So word of mouth has been huge for us. Yeah. Certainly, what is happening in the world is we're not creating this disruption. This disruption has been caused by the internet. Right, so the fact that you've got 70% of the world's population not connected to the internet, but they're connecting right now. You can get an internet connection in some refugee camps now for work, basically. It's a big macroeconomic trend, and so the ability for us to then write our PR on the back of that is great. I mean, the other day when Mubarak stepped down in Egypt, the BBC ran a story that day about the new beginning and new hope in Egypt, and the fact that people are going online to find jobs that were not available for them in Egypt, right? For example, when Obama goes to India, we went to India about a year ago and mentioned outsourcing, right? The next day we managed to be, that doesn't have to be about myself, responding to Obama in the Wall Street Journal, right? And outsource as a response, right? So there's the ability for us to go and bring ourselves into what's going on, engage in the conversation, I guess the way of saying it, what's going on in the media is huge. And then we've got a whole bunch of other stories we can tell. We can talk about how small businesses transforming themselves in Manly, for example, and we can take that to the Manly Daily, right? But we can take that story to Kansas. We can take that story to the Miami Herald. We can take that story to Manchester News and so forth. We can take it to an accountant's magazine. We can talk about how accountants are using it. We can take it to a car mechanics magazine and then we've got the quirky stories. So just like eBay's got a lot of publicity about the toast with Jesus on it selling on eBay for $10,000 or whatever it was. We've got a whole bunch of stories as well. Things like there's a guy who was living in a homeless shelter here in Sydney. He was 19 years old, and he basically was destitute, but using freelancers, he managed to build an online business and get himself out of the homeless shelter. There's a guy, the quirky stories, like there's a guy who built an iPhone application, took his girlfriend on a treasure hunt with it, and proposed marriage at the end of the whole thing.
Yeah, and there's homework ones and all.
The homework one is very popular. We don't encourage that at all, but that's another one that blew up. There's a US prisoner in a federal penitentiary that used us to publish a book on a prison education, and so it's been sort of his lifeline to the world in terms of getting where he wants to get in terms of his academic career, and so on. So those things happen all the time.
And it's just built into the business naturally.
That's right.
It's not hard at all. So.
That's right.
Okay. What about? I mean, you mentioned before it is a competitive space, and obviously you went and bought some of the smaller players. But I imagine other businesses like say Odesk or even say if it's for design, it could be I don't know, Design Crowd or 99 Designs or any of the other sort of competitors within this space. What are you doing to address them? I mean, what sort of is it literally that the space is growing so quickly anyway, so your business is growing, or are you sort of taking market share from them?
We're talking about the global labour market, right? This is a massive, massive, massive market, right? Something like, McKinsey projected something like 11% of all service jobs worldwide, or 1.46 billion jobs, could theoretically be outsourced barring no constraints in supply. So this is a massive market. There'll be multiple billion-dollar companies in this space, right? We're all focused on just our own business, optimizing revenue, revenue growth, etc. and so forth. And I don't worry the fact that there's other people out there, because if you look at any industry, you've got to have competitors, and certainly industry is because of this, you're going to have many billion-dollar companies out there, right? So, but each of those companies you mentioned do things in different ways. I mean, we focus very much on a high-volume marketplace. Odesk does not, in the words of Gary, who's the CEO. I actually was in there a few months ago having a chat with him. We've done really well. They don't monetize the marketplace. They sell a workforce management solution, and their primary client base, where they make the bread and butter, is at the beginning of town. So they sell a platform for monitoring people and seeing what they're doing while working online and managing that. But they have a sales force that will go and sell to Ford or General Motors 10,000 hours on their platform, and that's where they make the bulk of their money. They don't make it where we are, which is $200 jobs, right? High volume.
And taking a small cut.
Okay.
Okay, well that answers that then, great.
Yeah.
Other than PR, have you done any other sort of marketing?
We have. We've tried a bunch of things. When we launch in each of these different countries, what we do is we do a big marketing campaign as we launch, and that's been good to kind of generate buzz. So we went to London, we had 500 taxis and 100 billboards across London, so people saw it everywhere. And London's a pretty dreary place, but the taxis are all bright, neon blue and pink and so forth, so it was all very, very visible. We did that in a bunch of different places, so, and we're continually trying things all the time. A lot of the offline marketing does not result in direct ROI, but what it will do is it will help you convert other things. So it'll help you convert press, for example. So if a journalist goes out and sees that billboards everywhere and your name everywhere, then they're more take the phone call when you call them up and say, hey, I've got a great story to tell you, and so on. So there's a bunch of things like that.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And then, I mean, obviously it's an online article, they can click straight to the link. That is more trackable and probably...
That's right. I mean, your ultimate in online is things like Google, AdWords and so forth, but, so we run programs like that to generate ROI, direct ROI, it's measurable. We've got affiliate programs as well that drives a bit of our revenue and so on. So we've got like an AdSense replacement. So if you're a freelancer, you've got a blog talking about freelancing or design or whatever it may be, instead of putting Google ads up, you can put our ads up. Very, very similar look and feel, but you actually earn affiliate commissions from work anyone clicks through.
Yeah, okay.
And that's successful for us particularly because if you earn $5 from someone clicking on a link and you're in the Philippines, you go, wow, that can maybe buy me a meal and a meal or two or what have you, and I'm happy with that. So as a result of that, we've got 44 million backlinks from our affiliate program, which is huge. So
yeah. Okay, cool. That's a great strategy that's worked really well. Okay, so in terms of actually outsourcing itself, a lot of the listeners of this are startup entrepreneurs. I mean, they've got limited time and resources, that they've got a whole lot of tasks to do in growing businesses. Yep. So they're sort of, I guess, a prime audience who could be making use of a freelancer. I mean, obviously, things like web development, designs, copywriting, all these sort of things that they can outsource.
Yep.
I think that's probably pretty clear to a lot of people. But what about things that they should be outsourcing? So do you have any sort of thoughts on, I guess, more strategy around what are the things that someone should be outsourcing and how to identify them?
Right. Well, just about any job you can think of now is digitized, right? So, the whole spectrum of human endeavour is now something that can be done online, right? If you design a house, you do it in a software package. If you do copywriting, you're doing it instead of a Word document. If you do financial research, doing it in an Excel spreadsheet, or you make a product as a CAD/CAM file that gets loaded into the machine. So it's not just in the IT areas. Now it's mechanical engineering, it's architecture, it's taxation, accounting, financial research, and so forth. So, there's over 400 different categories on our site now that you can actually outsource in, and that continually grows. So it can cover the whole aspect of your business. I think what's key is, if you think about your business. I mean, how would your business change if you had access to virtually, unlimited labour at a very, very low cost? How would you do things differently if suddenly you could hire as many people as you wanted to? What sort of skill sets would you use? Where would you put them, etc.? And I think that will differ for everyone's business. But if you sit down and you think about what are the things I do in my day-to-day job that I don't like doing, that's boring, or if I had more help, or if I had like 10 people or 15 people, or even just one person to assist me, how would I change what I do? And I'll give you a great example of this. You can hire a virtual assistant, right, who is working for you full-time with a computer science degree or a marketing degree, who will sit there and manage your website and do all the customer correspondence to and fro, update all the product descriptions, all the website updates, email newsletters, and so forth. And you can hire someone like that who's highly qualified for about $300 a month, and this is above sort of an average pay grade. So $300 a month, you had someone just manage your entire website. And I hired someone for my mother to do this. So she's got a wholesale business, and she continually tries to call me on the phone. Can you help me with my website? Can you do this? Can you do that? So I just hired a lady in Sri Lanka who's a stay-at-home mother of two, computer science degree from the UK by correspondence, and she just does everything, just manages the entire website. So if you think about that, right, that sort of thing, it's very, very powerful.
Okay. So, that was a great example. So, just to break that down for a moment, it seems like either skills that you don't have, which is obvious that you've got to get someone else to do it anyway, or the other one is basically, I guess, low value, time consuming jobs, or ones that you don't like. It
doesn't necessarily have to be low value. It's just if you think the good thing about being a good manager is about the ability to delegate to people who are very good, right? Hiring people who are better than you in certain skill areas and then delegating to them, right? As a small business owner, you can now do that, right? Previously, you were maybe just a sole proprietor, you had no one to delegate to, right? Or maybe you had to call in external service providers, like an agency down the road, or have you, and that was time consuming, had hassle, and very costly. Now you can actually hire a whole virtual staff of freelancers, and you can delegate responsibility to them, right? And that liberates you to move up the value chain and start working on the creative, productive, highly valuable sort of stuff that we all love, which is coming up with strategy and new ideas and so on. And the actual implementation now of those ideas and the execution, you can actually rely upon the assistance of a virtual team to get it done. So that covers a whole range of things. So classic example might be, I've always wanted to have a website for my store, right? And you come up with the design of the website in terms of the functions and the features you want on the website, but you don't have to be the one now that goes and hire someone to go implement that. You can just go outsource that and get someone to build it for you. And then you think, well, what extension of that is what if I had an iPhone application that somehow integrated with that store, right? And you can just come up with a wireframe design of that, or you can even hire someone to come up with a wireframe design of it, and you can just get it built now for $600, $700 or so. So
okay, so obviously on that's a project-based work.
Yep.
But you're also talking about, I guess, potentially full-time or part-time ongoing work that you get someone through freelancer.
That's right.
And then keep them. Okay, great. Okay, so moving on to, I guess, just starting businesses and running them in general. Something that I heard you mention at Funding Connect was, you said when starting a business, ask yourself, how am I going to make $1 million? If you can actually do the numbers to make up $1 million, then you might have then you should have a real business. Explain that further.
My point about this was most people, when they think about a business, they don't think about the business model enough or deeply enough, right? They come up with ideas and concepts, and they think, wouldn't it be neat if we had this? And they focus too much on the technology or the particular product they're doing and not on the actual numbers. And a very, very simple exercise you can do is just to say to yourself, what do I have to do to be able to make $1 million? So if I'm selling a widget for $1, right, that means I've got to sell 1 million widgets to make $1 million, right? How long is that going to take? How long is the sales process, the sales cycle? Why is the customer going to pay $1, right? Will they pay $10? Will they pay 50 cents? Are they going to even pay at all, right? Going through these exercises, figuring out what my margins are, etc., to make maybe not just $1 million in revenue, but also maybe $1 million in profit, right? This greatly helps in your mind figure out, well, how many sales staff do I need? Is it feasible for this to occur? Is the market big enough to actually facilitate the number of sales? Is Australia a big enough market, or do I have to go global, right? Or focus on a completely different industry, right? And so on. And I've seen a lot of people who have gone and quite experienced people, and I've made this mistake myself, right? Going out there and building products in my previous company. I built one particular product which I probably put about $2 million into it, and figured out at the end of the day after we built the product that it was never going to sell. And when it was going to sell, it was never going to make any money, right? Because we hadn't done the simple modelling to figure out, really how many customers does this mean, how big is the market, et cetera, et cetera. So the big thing, is if up front you can very clearly see, okay, for me to go and get $1 million worth of revenue, I've got to sell to 1,000 customers. The customers we're going to pay $1,000 each, and it's going to be feasible with the resources I have under my control to actually go out there and get those 1,000 sales. And how long is that going to take, right? That greatly helps you in your planning for the business. Far too many people want to go out there and jump in and just build a product and then figure that sort of stuff out later, to the detriment. It takes time. It's a substantial amount of time and cost before they actually figure out that maybe they should be doing things a little bit differently.
Okay, and $1 million is a legitimate number to work out that you've got a semi-sizable business that's
it's an entry-level business.
Yeah,
right? $1 million these days does not get very far. Right?
Yeah.
You can hire maybe one or two people and so forth, but it gives you an idea of what scale you need and whether the resources are in tune with the actual business model and so forth.
Okay, great. Extending on business models in more detail, at Sid Start it was very clear you've got a very strong view around ensuring that a business has a clear business model.
Yep.
And I gather from what you said at the start, that's built from your own experience in things like this.
A bunch of things. I mean, like working as a venture capitalist and reading 200 business plans a day and getting people coming and pitching you, right? You'd go into these pitches sometimes and there's no mention of any financials. And you'd say, okay, well, how much are you selling the product for? Oh, we'll figure that out later. Well, you sit down and you do some stuff on a whiteboard with them, and they soon figure out they'll need 10,000 people on their sales force in order to actually go and make $1 million. Pretty much straight away, people will start thinking, hang on, maybe I haven't thought this through properly, right? I also teach at university. I teach technology entrepreneurship at university. I've got 40 students every year that we put into 10 teams of 4, go out and write business plans and introduce them to real venture capitalists and real entrepreneurs and so forth, which is great, and some real companies have spun it out already. It's just part of the process of understanding about the actual business, because you should really think, make sure you've got an idea that the business model is achievable and feasible before you actually go out there and start, spending money and hiring and knocking on investors' doors and so on.
Okay, so right from the start, you come up with an idea. I mean, this just has a normal case scenario. You come up with an idea.
Yeah.
And then you do this $1 million task and try and work it out, and you need a business model right from the start. That's how you would start a business now, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. You always, your business model will always evolve slightly, but you want to make sure that what you're doing is feasible, right? An example, a friend of mine came to me the other day and said he wanted to build a business where it was similar to the Fiverr model. So, Fiverr, what would I do for $5?
Okay.
Right? Fiverr takes 20% of that. And it's a great, interesting business, and Fiverr's got a lot of traffic going to it now, and for $5, I'll draw you a postcard in the sand, or for $5, I'll write a poem for your girlfriend, or Twitter out your name on my Twitter account, or whatever have you. And so I said to him, okay, so how do you make $1 million if it's $5 per task and you make $1? You've got to have 1 million tasks sold. Well, how long is that going to take? How much cost is going to be involved, etc. Right?
Yeah.
And wouldn't it be better maybe instead of focusing on $1 profit from a $5 task, maybe come up with an idea for the corporate market where what would I do for $100 or $300, and maybe you take $100, right? You've got a lot of small businesses out there that might be interested in this sort of model, etc. But you're making $100 each time instead of $1, so it's 100 times easier, and and so forth, probably for the same amount of effort, right? And so on. So it's just basic thought exercises like that I think everyone up front needs to address. A lot of people, particularly if they're technologists, just want to jump into the technology, jump into that, and they kind of gloss over the model, or don't touch the model, or they kind of feel a little bit uneasy about thinking about those numbers because it might actually break the reality that there's no business there. The market's not big enough, for example.
So there's a bit of a trend at the moment, to extend that idea further, of, I guess, web businesses, and these are outliers, but companies like LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter spring to mind. So they're obviously outliers, but there's this scenario where they try and build a massive user base.
Build it and they'll come.
Build it and they'll come. Well, it's build it and they'll come, but also it's build it and work out a business model later.
Yep.
And it's a big trend, and people see those big companies, and then they try and do it themselves, I guess, in a smaller scale.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my view, it just doesn't really work. What's your take on that?
These businesses are very special businesses that nailed pretty much how to grow rapidly, very quickly early on, right? So Facebook got to 600 million users in 7 years. From the day one when they launched that site, I don't know what the growth rate per month was, but it would have been something around 30% per month growth rate. When you look at a business like that, and you understand the market's massive, because Facebook potentially could have every user on the planet, every person on the planet, be a user of the site, right? Then you go, okay, maybe we'll just scale it up and we'll see where we get once we scale up. And you'll be able to raise money on the back of the fact that you've got millions and millions of real people interacting, doing things on the site. It's a very, very clear, very transparent model that something magical is happening there, right? Twitter went from 0 to 200 million users in 5 years, right? Again, you've got rapid growth. eBay was the same, and eBay was monetized from day one, but and so on. Zynga was monetized from day one. So Zynga, when Farmville went from 0 to 100 million users in 45 days, right? And people putting their credit cards in, because you can only go up the levels properly if you kind of bought $9.95 worth of credit every once in a while, and so on. So, but in the case of Facebook and the Twitters and so on, these are businesses where it's very clear up front that this is real, right? I think, to an extent, although Twitter, I'm not sure where they're going to go with it. I think they need to think a little bit more about the business model, but there's certainly a lot of directions you can go with the fact that they've got 200 million users on the site, right?
Okay, and just to clarify, your take is because they're so massive, they're consumer-facing businesses with the potential to go so big, and they have from the start. Then it's not as bad to not have a business model from the start.
At the start in these businesses, it's very clear that something great was happening. Right? If you build a website and your idea is to kind of think about, if you've got a business where your business model is, we'll worry about that later, and it's not growing out the gate at day one at a rapid rate, then you've got no business.
Okay. Right. Good. Answered it well.
Google when they pitched Ron Conway, at the end of the pitch there was no financials, and Ron said there's no financials in this business. What's your business model? And they said we haven't figured it out yet, right? And they didn't figure it out until they bought a company. The reason why Ron invested is because he was an investor in Ask Jeeves. Ask Jeeves had just gone public at a certain valuation, and he made a certain amount of money from it. And if they had better search technology than Ask Jeeves, they might as well just take a punt on them, right? So take a punt on 2 Stanford PhDs, you've probably got a good chance of getting somewhere with it.
Okay, very interesting. Coming back to a little bit about what you mentioned, I guess, with your background, it sounded like there was, I guess, a variety of successes and failures in the sense that, it wasn't, you talked about this hardware business, a long sales cycle, and obviously it wasn't something that exploded and went ultra successful, but obviously you've got a massive amount of experience and a variety of success to gather from.
It was my $30 million MBA. Okay. It's not a success. I don't think even though it's profitable now, I don't think it's a success by any means. But it's certainly, anyone can hold the rudder when the sea is calm, right? But, the great thing about being in a business that fails, and by failure I increase the definition to include, is not greatly successful, right? Kind of just potters along for a bit and so on. You get to see all this stuff, which is immensely helpful to you later on, right? Venture financing documents are this thick, right? And they're, you get to see how all these clauses get triggered in various scenarios, right? In terms of, if maybe you have a flat investment round or a down round, or you've got some issues, fundamentally in terms of strategy, someone wants to leave the company, etc. You get to see how all these, how the whole thing works, right? And it's a tremendous experience. In the US, investors sometimes, or quite often, like to say that they look for people, they like to see someone who's had a failure in the past because they know that goddamn this guy's not going to do it again, right? And they've got great, the experience that came through from that is invaluable, right? In terms of the next business. So I would not be here, where I am today at Freelancer if it wasn't through, the past experiences.
Well, that was going to be my comment. And it's good that you explained that, but obviously you've got all this experience, you've got skills, you've got knowledge, you've got connections from whatever it was, close to a decade, I guess, of business or entrepreneur experience. And now you've got the option to start up something like Freelancer. You can play this bigger game. I guess a question I have out of that is, with that hindsight now, for someone, I guess, who's still developing that experience and skills and connections, what are the key things you think you've got out of it that if someone's going to actively try and, I guess, acquire or attain those skills, knowledge, connections, etc., what are the key things you would think that they should go out and try and attain?
Well, a few of the things that are really key for me. Number one is I got a whole bunch of great mentors early on. So in my previous business, I had Bill Barty from Southern Cross as my chairman. He's also a good friend of mine, helps deliver now the technology entrepreneurship course that I deliver. There was Alan Little, who founded Micromedical Industries, which became VentureCore, and he was a very experienced CEO and very well connected and a great guy, also a good friend. And I had George Foster from Stanford Business School, who runs the entrepreneurship program. And these are all fantastic guys to have around you, and they mentored me. Basically, they helped me understand how a board works, how to deal with investors, how to think about strategy, how to go out there and execute, how to deal with customers, all this sort of stuff. So, I encourage everyone to go out there at the beginning of their careers and go find mentors. You can see when by going to SID-Start and all those sort of conferences, there's a bunch of people who are experienced, who are kind of willing to help people out if they like what they're doing and like the individual. Yeah. So that was a big thing. I do also think that my personal belief is that there are a number of things that venture firms could do to save them a lot of money and a lot of time, right? In particular, when you go finance a company with a first-time CEO, there's a bunch of courses they could send you on, like Stanford's got an emerging program for growing companies course. It's a 2-week course. You go there and it's like a mini MBA packed into 2 weeks. I did that in 2005. I wish I did it in 2002. Right? Because you come out there and you've got all these ideas of, in terms of strategy, in terms of applying to the business. There's a number of frameworks and concepts that you were trying to develop yourself organically, and in your mind just start to crystallize when you go and get exposed to them, right? So there's a bunch of things like that where just up front, just a little bit of training, I think, would really save, in my case, I think at Sensory would have saved, a year or two and a couple $1 million, while I was going around trying to figure these things out, right? Now the great thing is there's a whole wealth of knowledge online, right? Particularly in the startup area. So you can read TechCrunch, you can, there's a whole bunch of startup or founder-based websites where you've got deal documentation you can read through. There's an analysis of how that works. There's commentary on how to go out raising money, how to go out thinking about strategy, right through to a lot of really practical stuff in terms of how to increase conversion on the website, how a funnel works, and so on. So reading a lot of that is huge. It's getting easier and easier and easier to start a business, not just because of the fact that all this information's out there now and it's all easy to read. Right back in 1997, there was very little out there because the bubble had just started, or dot-com boom had just started to an extent. The other thing is now it's really low cost to start a business, so you can literally do it off the back of a credit card. In certain industries, certainly not in hardware, but in consumer internet, for example, consumer software, and so forth. This is why there's been a whole new development of a new class of investor, basically being the super angel. So instead of putting $5 million into a Series A investment, which was the traditional way of doing it back in the late 90s, early 90s, now you can fund a company with 50 grand, 100 grand, 250 grand, right? Because you can use freelancers to get things done for you. You can build a website really quickly. You can use cloud computing, or just get a dedicated host up very cheaply, and so on. And literally, you can get a business going with only funding a couple of guys, and feeding them for a year or two. Dig.com started with $60 outsourced on a competitive exchange, and then they got an offer several years later for, I think it was about $150 million. They turned down, silly enough. My partner in this business started PC Tools originally with $1,000. He outsourced on an exchange, and he got his first version of his product and then iterated on that and bootstrapped the company into $100 million in revenue.
So just jumping in there for a moment, to try and, I guess, take a lesson out of that, is it go get mentors, which is what we discussed before, but then also go start a business on, a whole lot cheaper now and get that experience yourself? You
can, And a lot of people think about starting businesses, but they don't actually go out and do it. Right? I've read a survey somewhere recently, it was in the UK, so it's 60% of people surveyed in the UK were thinking of starting a business, but 5% of people were, right? The thing is, you will learn so much. It'll be the most incredibly rewarding and challenging thing you'll ever do, but in terms of the ability to have your own lifestyle, forge your own destiny, change the world, do what have you, it's incredibly rewarding. And it's never been easy to time to do it. So and there's a bunch of programs around as well. Government has all sorts of programs that will assist people getting off the ground and so forth. So it's something I really encourage everyone to go and do. And it's something that, for example, in Australia that we need to be doing more and more of.
For sure. I guess personally for you, what would you say your entrepreneurial skills in terms of your core skills? Like, if you're going to start a business or get involved in a business, what do you bring to the table?
Well, I think the good thing is, I span both business and technology. So I've got 3 degrees in engineering, computer science. I've got a master's degree in applied finance as well, which I did not so long ago. I've worked in venture capital, albeit briefly, and so forth. But I've run companies basically for the last 10 years. So I think it's fairly unique that you kind of get someone who can actually cross both sides and be a CEO, but still I can go in there and fix things if something goes wrong. Like when Amazon EC2 blew up a few weeks ago, I could get in there and actually start fixing things.
In terms of actually coding, you mean?
Yeah, coding or dealing with the instances and so forth. So I'm pretty, there's pretty much every aspect of the business I can actually just drill in and get into. Maybe not as deep as some of the guys here, but at least I know what I'm doing to an extent. So so that's good. And so it gives you a lot of power and the ability to actually have confidence in what's going on and so on. And that's why we can go full speed ahead, because I think I don't have to worry about certain aspects of the business because I have a certain level of confidence and understanding the depth of what's going on. So
that does make a lot of sense. Closing off, I guess, right now, because I just noticed we're out of time. But what's next for I guess Freelancer, or even potentially yourself? If I'm not sure if you're in a situation where Freelancer's off and running and you can sort of start some new projects, or is it
no, I'm focused on this.
Full focus on Freelancer. So what's next for them for Freelancer?
Well, fundamentally, we want to be the next eBay, but for jobs, right? And this is a very, very big market. We want to be a big company. We want to be Australia's first big consumer internet company. I mean, the US has got their Facebook and their Zingers and their Twitters and Groupons and so on, and we don't really have that here. I mean, we've got Atlassian. That's not really consumer internet. That's more enterprise software and so forth. But we want to be the big consumer internet company in this country. And there's a long way to go. There's a list of 100 things or more, which is optimizations and improving what we do. This is still a bit of a turnaround because we've got legacy processes, legacy code base that we've inherited through all these acquisitions. So we're constantly optimizing that. And that's one extent. And then as we get through that, increasingly we want to go out there and promote the business more and grow up more and get in every country and build it right up. I mean, fundamentally, if we can be the 20th biggest website in Bangladesh, we can be the 20th biggest website in the US, right? And I don't see there's any reason why we can't have 500 million users on our site, because everyone in the world, in terms of, if you look at eBay, for example, and you look at what we do, we think that there's no reason we couldn't be bigger than eBay. And the reason why is if you're in Africa, you may have no possessions to sell on eBay, you may have no money to buy anything on eBay, but you can jump online and start freelancing. Start off with something simple, maybe start off with some data entry, and as you skill up, get into graphic design or programming or copywriting or anywhere you want to go, right? And so that's why I think intuitively, I think this could be a bigger business, because I think it can be more applicable to more people in the world.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Well, it's a big task, and good luck in that. Right. So thanks a lot.
Great, thanks a lot. Thanks for coming. Great.
That was the interview. Hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any feedback or recommendations of people who I should be interviewing, please let me know. I do want to hear about it. Get in contact with me via the iPitch website. That's the best way. And otherwise, look out for more interviews at ipitch.com.au. Thank you.